The Arizona Cardinals have officially closed the book on the Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray era with the release of Kyler Murray earlier this month. And with that comes the rebuilding process. And there are many questions, some looking back at hoping history does not repeat itself when it pertains to the draft and future free agent moves. I'll let you know what steps the Arizona Cardinals need to take to bring itself out of oblivion on this edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all so much for joining us here on another edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Again, you are joined by the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And guys, I want to tell you so much. I appreciate the ones that are checking me out. That Raiders show I got out for you guys about why the Raiders should possibly not take Fernando Mendoza and trade back has sparked quite a few interesting comments and statements. So, guys, if you haven't watched it, please go by and check it out. I will have several more shows out there, and I know many of you are wondering, well, why did you do the Arizona Cardinals next? Well, ultimately, yes, the Jets are in disarray, but I think right now, had Dante Moore had been coming out, I think that would have been a more compelling situation to do. But right now, the Cardinals have a serious question to ponder. And I was listening to, with the release of Kyler Murray, it brings up an interesting scenario. I was listening to an Arizona podcast YouTube channel, Luke and Wolf, and they were tossing around the idea of how trading down to get picks is an example that they had. Y'all guys remember the deal that sent Will Anderson to the Texans? They were tossing around the idea of what could have been. As in, right now the Arizona Cardinals, many people are projecting, and a lot of people around Arizona are projecting to that Francis Noah, the outstanding guard out of Miami, is going to be the player of interest to them. Now, if you've seen any concept of a mock draft, whether it be Mel Kiper Jr. to Pete Prisco or just anybody of significance in the national media, they've got the Cardinals taking one of these outstanding pass rushers, which is not a horrible decision, but I just have to throw this in there. I understand what Luke and Wolf are saying here, but let's do a little bit of tracking, shall we? Yes, Will Anderson has turned into a really good performer. But you also got to look at the fact, who did the Houston Texans have on this team already? Danielle Hunter, Derek Stingley, Henry To'oTo'o, Kalen Bullock. Well, now granted, Bullock was a rookie this year. And Kamari Lassiter. You didn't just put Will Anderson out there as being the only playmaker. I get it. They do have some players. Now, if you want to look back at what this team had, at the time that this trade took place, you would have had the guy who I'm a big fan of as a Carolina Panther fan, Isaiah Simmons, who was picked right after the Panthers took Derek Brown. Now, a lot of you Arizona Cardinal fans are going to be sore, but let's keep it in perspective. Isaiah Simmons was not a failure because he wasn't the great player. Your defensive coaching staff failed Isaiah Simmons because you didn't know what to do with him. Simmons was above his time, where you got guys like Kyle Hamilton, where Will McDonald understands how to use them, just like Nick Emanroy at Seattle. Simmons was a positionless player. You got guys like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in Cleveland who was playing that role. Hopefully he gets back this season for them. Great player. The problem we have in the NFL is these players are getting so much more athletic. Not all of them, but you got these special players even the NFL doesn't know what to do with them. Isaiah Simmons is one of those. You've even guys like Arbel Reese and Sonny Styles. These are guys that are so special, teams don't know what to do with them. But let's not move too far ahead. Kyler Murray leaves Arizona, and for his career, he was 19. He had 1,974 completions on 2,941 attempts at 67% for over 20,460 yards, 121 scores, 60 interceptions for a passer rating of 92. However, you look at the last two of the last 3 seasons, and injuries really hounded the franchise quarterback. And realistically, I think this was a pattern that Kyler kind of played himself into, because I really believe, and I don't know how you Arizona Cardinal fans feel about this, but I really felt like Kyler played himself out of Arizona, and being that he was a guy who ran his own defense attorney out of time in Cliff Kingsbury. I think ultimately Kingsbury was a lot like Canales in Carolina. He was so caught up with the offense, not worried about what the defense was doing, and you cannot do that. When you're just a strictly one-sided coach, it gets you in trouble. And Kingsbury was not able to get this defense. Now, not that it was horrible, but it wasn't good either. You weren't able to get Simmons and those guys up to par, Xavier Collins, and you weren't able to get these great players in order to play at another level. You guys like Budda Baker, you had talented guys on this team. You just weren't able to put it together enough on offense or defense. You had some great seasons. If I remember right, it was you were just coming off the 24 season, and you were 11-5. And when we sit back and we start thinking about, and we look retrospectively on that Houston trade, and you were able to get your future left tackle, and realistically, you have to really, you can't sit and just question whether or not you made the right decision. Okay, because look, you only have a split second. They've only got 8 minutes in this year's draft. You have to make a decision. You have to have like 3 or 4 different scenarios play out. That's why it's so enjoyable to do these mock simulations, because you could get, okay, in this situation you could get a first, second, third in this year's draft, and then get a first in this draft. But then in the next draft, you'll get a first and a third for a pick, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Now hold on. How is it we only got this much when we got this much in the last one? So I mean, the tough part about what the Arizona Cardinals are dealing with is, and I'm gonna be honest with you, the gamble with Kyler Murray wasn't just on his playmaking ability. A lot of it was just on the sheer fact that his immaturity. And I think that came out clearly. I don't know if it was just before or after the Cliff Kingsbury blow up. I think it was before. A lot of people questioned, especially when they gave him that extension, his maturity as a leader and as a person. Now, see, this is where, and I will do a show on how he can affect the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think there was a doubt that the Cardinals could count on his playmaking ability. I think the durability was the third strike. I really think that's what it was. And knowing that they did not have they didn't necessarily have a great foundation up front, It's okay, but they got to get that right tackle position fixed. They got to get one of the guard positions fixed. They've got to get, because honestly, when you get a guy like him who, yes, he may be absolutely dominating running the football, but realistically, you need him to stand in the pocket. And unlike Justin Fields, which I'm going to do a show on that because I heard somebody say something very interesting about Justin Fields. Stay up if you're an individual that is interested in watching Justin Fields, because I don't believe all of his failure in the NFL is his fault. Sorry, call me wrong. Same thing with Kyler Murray. I think a lot of his problem wasn't just his inability to watch film. A lot of his problem dealt with play designs, inability to get guys in positions. I mean, when we look at the late Rondale Moore, I get it, injuries derailed his career, but when you look at the type of player Christian Kirk were, these are guys that allow Kyler Murray, when he escapes, these two guys had a knack for finding openings in defenses. A lot of the problem that Kyler Murray had, look, there's a lot of times this guy should not be taken off with the football. And realistically, when he does take off, if you got these kind of guys, they're going to find gaps big down the field. If I remember, like, the great Rondale Moore was a guy who specialized in getting open because he was a quarterback, if I remember right, in high school. And realistically, when you have guys like that, like I said, I'm not trying to throw shade at Arizona, but Rondale Moore and is another character who was horribly mismanaged in this organization. And you could say that for a lot of players, as well as Kyler Murray. Now, but I'd say Kyler Murray is more responsible for his undoing than Rondale is, because Kyler went against the establishment too many times for a guy whom, at the end of the day, listen, there's nothing wrong with calling out a coach, but you don't do it publicly. You don't do it vindictively. There's a right and a wrong way to do it. And Kyler didn't do it. Kyler didn't do it. In which is going to hurt Arizona more than it's going to hurt Kyler. But we'll see about that. That remains to be seen. But right now, Arizona's got to figure out what to do. Looking here at what the show Luke and Wolf was talking about, they're referring to, their parallel of the Anderson trade with the Texans is where we are right now. Should the Cardinals trade back with anybody and risk losing Maui Noah? Yes, there are good players at that tackle position. I agree. Look, if Maui Noah gets taken, look, Miller out of Clemson is available later on. I think if you trade back to about number 9 or number 10, you still can get them. I don't think there are enough teams up there trying to take tackle. Now, that's not to say somebody else is willing to trade up. You've got several teams that they're a couple of players away from being there. But the problem with this year is, guys, and I've heard many people say this, many teams are not willing to part with their first round picks next season. Now, I beg to differ. I'm going to tell you why. You want to know why? You could argue 14 teams in this draft would part with their first round pick. You want to know why? They don't need quarterbacks. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, who said they were going to get quarterbacks? Let me explain to you. Judging by what I'm saying, you're going to have at least 4 quarterbacks coming out that are possibly going to be the first 4 picks of next year's draft. If it's not a certain corner or possibly a certain pass rusher. Just saying. So you could very well see a huge number of trade-ups or possibly not. It would not surprise me if I saw teams like the Ravens trade up. It would not surprise me if we saw teams like the Buffalo Bills, Los Angeles Chargers, just any team that's got its franchise quarterback, and they were in the playoffs last season. You know, a lot of people are saying, well, the Houston Texans got questions with C.J. Stroud. Nope. I think the Cardinals could very much secure a first-round pick next season from one of these lower teams that are interested in getting up there. However, here's the issue with that. If you take one of these teams up on their offer and get you a stash or get you a whole haul, you better be sold on a guy like Miller. Or are you willing to jump back in there? Take Maui Noah at possibly 8, 9, or 10? Trade back in? I don't think this is a bad deal for the Cardinals. Because as much as Will Anderson would have been a nasty pickup for the Cardinals, I don't know if they have enough around him. The defensive presence that the Houston Texans have with Will Anderson, to go with the fact that Danielle Hunter is just absolutely a terror, is unprecedented. There's no way to predict, and who's to say that the scheme set would have fit? They couldn't even do anything with Isaiah Simmons. Look, I watched the game, Arizona Cardinal fans. Don't sit there and go off on Simmons. Simmons was the guy who had the pick 6, remember? And I don't mean y'all gonna say pick 6 don't mean nothing. Look, the fact is, the DC, Cliff Kingsbury, and even the guys that they had during that time did not know what they were doing. They didn't. Seriously. You can't have Isaiah Simmons and can't get it figured out. Xavier Collins. Budda Baker. So, what I say they should do, I say take the best offer that keeps you in the top 10. That's what I say do. Keep your best option maybe at 8, 9. Then you can take Maui Noah and you get some really good feet. You get some really good compensation. And basically you can, I would say, take care of the entire line and possibly get you a good pass rusher. Because the guard class is pretty good this season. Tackle class, 2 rounds deep, you could argue. You just got to be careful with this Maui Noah selection. You cannot let this guy get through your fingers. You cannot let him slip through. This has got to be a guy that you get. I think a lot of people are going to say, well, what do you think about Ty Simpson? No. No. He's not ready for what you got. He needs to go to a team that already has a line, already has weapons in place, and a coordinator that can take advantage of his set. Arizona ain't it. They're just not. You would need too much too fast, and it would destroy his confidence. Wait till next season. Even if you finish middle of the road, I know a lot of Cardinal fans going to say, well, we're going to lose again. You don't have to lose again. But look at the division you're in. The Super Bowl champs. The runners-up in the NFC. A team that was in the playoffs last year. Yeah. Don't rush it. Trust me. It's sitting there getting to the playoffs and you ain't even 2-3 players away in free agency or the draft. It's not worth it. Trust me, it's not worth it. Take your time, build it right. There's 31 other teams out there. Let Maui Noah be the start of the rebuild. Or if you want to call it, the continuation of it. You still got Marvin Harrison Jr. You still got Connor. You just took Algier from Atlanta. I think you kind of overpaid him a little bit. But what can you not do with this team? You get that offensive line and that defensive line figured out, you're in business. You get that right guard, right tackle that you need, possibly get a guard, and then get a pretty good pass rusher. There's your foundation. And then possibly you make the right kind of decision with that third pick, you could very well get you a wide receiver to go with Marvin Harrison. And then you're just warming that car up for the right quarterback next season to take over. Let me know what you guys think out there in Arizona. Guys, make sure you hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think y'all need to do with that third pick. You like the idea of trading down and collecting more picks? Do you think the show Luke and Wolf have a great point as far as what they need to do with the third pick? Is there worrisome about the number 3 pick, the pick that they had a couple of years ago with Will Anderson and trading it to Houston? Is that lingering in your mind? Do you think that's going to be a huge decision as to whether Arizona trades this pick or they take Maui Noah with the third pick? Do you even care if they trade the pick? Before I go away, you guys, real quick, gab out to my buddies over at the Format Podcast. There are a couple of topics I am going to be discussing that they were talking about. As I said about Justin Fields, guys, make sure you go over there and check them out with my buddy Bruce and Sneed. They do a great job breaking down NFL content. I will be on their show in a couple of weeks, so y'all guys make sure y'all check that out. Also, make sure you go over to Gridiron Gab Pro Style, the group over at Facebook, as well as check out the page Gridiron Gab Pro Style on Facebook. Make sure you add us as a friend as well as join the group. Finally, make sure you go over to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can check out all my off-season and in-season shenanigans I will be caught up in. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to